From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, it's the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm Vasilos, that is Sean Fazende. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, and review. You can find us wherever you listen to and watch your podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the little bell button right there. You get notified every time we upload a new podcast. Sean, happy Friday to you. We have the Saints taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this weekend, and it could very well decide the fate of the playoff fate of the Saints heading into this week.
Big week, back to work, another week. Running out of these regular season weeks up ahead, and at some point in the season, we felt like the playoffs were a foregone conclusion that they were going to get there, but not the case anymore. Circumstances that they've put themselves in have certainly put them in a position where now they need some help, because what happened, as we mentioned last pod, over the Christmas weekend, you didn't get the help you needed because you didn't take care of business in Los Angeles. So away they go, another game against the Bucs. They go to Tampa. Tampa is a spot they've done fairly well at over the years. They know the opponent well, know the city well. A lot of times you'll see Saints fans travel there. It's a holiday weekend. Who knows? Maybe you'll see some black and gold in the stands. LSU's going to be there. So who knows? So it's an interesting set of circumstances leading up to this game that could maybe help your team. And look, Tampa, I love Tampa, and Bucs fans are cool, but it's not the most devastating home field advantages in the NFL. So in that level, it's it's away they go. It's here they go, try to finish this thing out, because if you don't win, obviously Sunday, all their hopes and dreams of postseason would come crumbling down. And my goodness, how disappointing would that finality feel when it finally hits? You kind of get a little bit of the feeling of the inevitability that they're not going to make it, but when it finally hits, I can only imagine you guys in the comments section down there, because it's going to be an interesting one. So anyway, what's the big picture today? All
right, so big picture is Dennis Allen, he's been our big picture a few times. Mm-hmm. Is he coaching for his job this week, Sean?
Not this week, but is he coaching for his job to close out the season? There are only 2 games left.
Right.
So, in the words of the great Deuce McAllister, yes and no. Here's the thing. I know there was a hinting. It wasn't really a report. It was more of it is my understanding from the National Reporter that DA is safe.
Right.
I think their natural inclination is to not have to move on from Dennis Allen, as much as that upsets the fan base, as much as that upsets the comment section right now. The Saints generally don't move on from a coach after 2 seasons. However, he can't lose out. You can't lose out. Dennis Allen cannot lose out. Now, we had this pod when they were going into the final 4 weeks of the season. What would Dennis Allen need to keep his job? And I said, if they lost out, done. 7-10, in my opinion, done. Should be. 8-9, I felt like he'd be safe. Anything above 8-9, I felt like he would be safe. Even though if it were me, I think the mandate should be postseason, or let's look to see what else we can find out there with this organization. He cannot lose 3 straight games. He cannot lose 3 straight games to close out the season. And
I think I said 1 and 3.
Yeah.
Yep. So
you said 1 and 3.
I did. I also did say that they would lose the Giants game, but I was also wrong there. So.
I agree. I don't agree. I agree you were wrong, but I understand what you I understand what you meant when you said that. But that was your projection of where they would finish. I said we're going to finish 8-9. You said 7-10. Still, you talk about a 7-10 team a season ago. To go from that with the investment you made to have the exact same record, big picture, organizationally, you've got to make a move at that point. Now, if you get to 8-9, you have at least a 1-game improvement, and you would have won 2 of the final 4 games. But if you lose 3 straight games, that would be a horrible look, and it really would kind of reek of, they kind of checked out early on the season. And that is a reflection of the head coach, that they kind of feel like they can kind of get away with anything. And that would not be an indication of strong leadership from the head coaching position. So that's why I stand. I think he's safe, but that comes with the assumption that they win one of their last 2 games. Neither one are guarantees.
No.
Especially this week. Now, look, we mentioned the last pod. The Saints are pretty good coming off that mini bye. They've won their last 4 coming off that Thursday night mini bye or Friday, depending on the Christmas Day game back in 2020 on a Friday. So, look, they got some things working in their favor. And, the vibe in the locker room this week was pretty matter of fact, pretty similar to what it's always been. It's a real hard thing to read because they've been you just never know. But 8-9, I think he returns. But I think he returns with some significant turnover on his staff. Maybe most of the offensive coaching staff, maybe even some guys on the defense. I don't think people are really talking much about the drastic drop-off from Ryan Nielsen to Ty Grantham at defensive line. So I think 8-9, he comes back. He's able to, reprogram this thing. Hey, we got a fresh voice offensively. It's going to work better. New creative voice, new creative lens to look at this offense, and we're going to try to shake things up. And then obviously year 3 at that point would be playoffs or bust. And I think he signed an initial 3-year deal. And obviously 9-8, if he wins out, I think he's back. So that's where I stand with it. I think he's got to win at least 1 or 2. And if he doesn't, I think if he's the Saints organization, you'd be forced to, because it would be so disheartening, the season of promise, to end on a 3-game losing streak. It would not be a good look. And honestly,
it would really define the season almost.
But it would show up in the stands next year, because the level of disgust, if you were to run it back with that finish, he hadn't built up enough favor. Goodwill within the fan base to earn that. Because if I can recall back in, this is way back, 2001, Jim Haslett coming off his first playoff, the franchise's first playoff win. The next year, we're Super Bowl contenders. I think they started out 7-5 that year, lost 4 straight. And the following year, they lost 3 straight. And then that's when everything started to take a dip to close out the season. He was able to come back both years. So we'll see. But I just think from where you want to be organizationally, he's got to at least get to 8-9. And even verbalizing that just sounds like, really, 8-9. That's what we're calling worthy of coming back. I get it. I totally get it. But I just think that's going to happen, because regardless of wins and losses this season and staff shakeup this season, I think a massive roster overhaul is coming. A significant, they need a generational shift on this roster. And we're going to get into specific guys when the season ends, but I think that's coming, plus the possibility of new assistant coaches. And look, who knows in the front office if there's a shakeup. Maybe there's always been that kind of idea out there that at some point Mickey Loomis would kind of not step down, but maybe step into almost like a elevated role and let someone else run the day-to-day as the GM. Maybe that could be something that ends up happening. I don't know. I mean, that's all speculation on my part. But I do think, bottom line, for Dennis Allen, you got to win one of these next 2 games. Because I don't see how you can sell DA 3 straight. It's going to be hard to sell DA regardless, but 3 straight losses to end the season, 7-10 when you had this division, this roster, this schedule. Oof. What a swing and a miss that would be.
If you had to pick one of these 2 games, I'm assuming you think the Falcons game would probably be the most winnable.
Yeah, I said that on the radio. The Falcons game would be the one I would pick. This team's so inconsistent, though. They could win both games. They could lose both games.
I mean, historically, over the last decade, they've won 70% of their games in Tampa.
Yeah, it's always been a decent matchup for them in Tampa. They've done well at that stadium. They've done well at Atlanta Stadium too, but obviously this year was not the case. But so it's one of those where it's change is coming. It's just how much change and how big are the changes, and is it one of those bedrock changes where it's GM, head coach, quarterback? The quarterback's not getting changed, at least not from. He's not getting cut. But you know what I'm saying? Like one of those foundational pieces. Is that kind of change, or is it more of kind of I call it minor, but they're very significant changes on coaching staff. So anyway, pay close attention to the next 2 games, because if you don't get 1 win, I think that option's on the table. I don't think it's a slam dunk. He's back. I think they're leaning in that direction, but to me, to be safe, get 1 more win.
Well, we know one change that will not be happening this week. Michael Thomas will not be returning to the field for the New Orleans Saints. Are you surprised about that at all?
No. No. Look, man. Check his recovery history from injuries over the last 4 years.
Buddy, don't I know it? We did a whole podcast about this last year.
My guy, I mean, every time he's gotten injured, it's been a projected timeline, extended timeline, to surgery, to no surgery, to delayed surgery, to it's been a mess. It's been a mess. Yeah, so, no, I from a purely medical health situation, when he got hurt in Minnesota, I was like, he ain't coming back in 4 weeks. Look at his history. And look at his history. I think he's 30 or 31 now, so he's a little bit older, and he's injury prone. I mean, come on, he's injury prone. So I'm not even sure he's in the city right now. Yeah, I talked to Jeff Duncan earlier. He said Marshawn Lattimore is around, but Mike T isn't. I mean, sometimes I'm starting to pick up on the vibe of, I remember that when he went off on that Twitter nonsense he always does. Whenever he seems to be alone watching the game and there's no supervision around, he just goes crazy with his Twitter fingers. And DA was asked about it, and he said something about we'll keep it in-house. So we don't know if there was ever any punishment or discipline, but I'm kind of picking up on a vibe like, yo, man, just kind of stay where you're at. Like, stay away. That's kind of, I mean, I could be totally wrong with that, but it's kind of the vibe I'm picking up on. But the fact that he's not available, not surprised in the least. We talk more about this guy. What if he's healthy, he's this, he's that. Dude, now you could be 100% healthy the rest of your career. I just think you're out of the top. Would even be in the top 25 of receivers right now. Top 20 of receivers right now.
I mean, he had a really solid start to the season.
Yeah, solid.
We saw like what
he's not a 1 anymore.
No, we saw he's a very good possession receiver.
Yeah.
It looked like he was starting to play his way into a contract with another team after this season. And I mean, he might very well still get one if he can recover, but he's since fallen off, and that injury is not doing him any favors.
And look, he had the off the field incident, which sucks because I've heard the stories from both sides of that, and those types of things happen. And then he got injured, and then he goes on the Twitter rant, and honestly, man, it's like you get to the point where like what you're providing isn't worth
the headache,
the headache and the discussion, because you're never healthy. You're always a distraction when it comes to social media, and you're just, like you said before, I mean, you're okay as a player. You're not great anymore. You're not 2019 Michael Thomas. So all that to say, no, I'm not surprised. And I have been so wrong about this because I feel like I've said this many a times, so I'll be careful how I word it. We may have seen, I'm not going to say definitively, but we may have seen Michael Thomas's last game as a Saint. I think that's a very real possibility if the Saints don't.
I feel like we've definitely heard that before.
If the Saints don't make the postseason, I feel like that's a very real possibility. Take that with a grain of salt, because I have been wrong like 3 or 4 different times on that. He seems to come back well past the time I thought it was. I thought the Saints would have been done with him. So take that for what it's worth. But the fact that he's not available this game, and I mean, who knows if he's available for Atlanta? That's not surprising to me.
All right. Any final thoughts as we head into this Week 17 matchup, Sean?
Got to win. Get the win. We'll see what happens. Look, I think there's a couple things that they're going to have to do. Take care of the ball, obviously. Play action, obviously. They've got to run the football, though. They have got to find a running game to give themselves any sort of semblance of chance and balance in this game. And it sure would be nice if they had one of those games where, like, they're not behind 10-0 before you blink an eye.
And that's very possible because the last 3 games the Buccaneers have played, they've averaged 31 points per game.
The Buccaneers have taken advantage. They have taken advantage of the situation, much like anyone else in the NFC South could have. They have, because it's a terrible division, and they've got a terrible schedule just like the Saints. And they've taken advantage, and that's why they find themselves where they're at. But the Saints can at least prolong their playoff fate one more week by getting a win. So get the W. We'll see.
All right, so we'll discuss more of the outcome of this game on Monday between the Saints and the Buccaneers. For Sean Fazende, I'm Vasilios. We'll catch you guys next time.